Good morning. This is VirtualPBX-admin training. Just want to make sure everything is broadcasting properly, and then we'll go ahead and get started. The training will last approximately an hour and a half. And we'll be covering all the Dash features. Let's go ahead and get started since it's already 10 o'clock. You see here our Dash login page, which is at dash.virtualpbx.com. You can get that from the virtualpbx.com website by clicking on the login link you'll find towards the top in a blue bar. To log in, we need your email address, we need your password, and then we also need your account name, which is typically your company name. Now, if you don't have this information, specifically your password, then you can click on Forgot Your Info, which is right above the sign-in bar. We still need your email address, right? And then we need one of the following two, right? We need either the account name or a phone number that's on the account. For most people, the account name is the easier one. The one thing to keep in mind is for the account name, capitalization is important. But then you click on Reset Password. The system will send you an email and we'll have a link that logs you in that allows you to change your password. It will log you back out so you can enter it again one more time, as well as you have the opportunity to click on Remember Me. Now, I'm using a test account that I've logged into several times. So when I log in, it's taking me right to the dashboard. For you, if it's your first time logging in especially, you're actually not taken to this page. You first get taken to your user account page, which you can always get to by clicking on your name up here at the top of the page. And here, this is where you would start off your first time logging in. The Dash wizard is going to have some pop-up boxes telling you what certain things are. The main thing people change here is their password, right? This is where you change your own personal password. Now, as an admin, I also have I can get to the account level settings. Again, and the most common thing people change here is their time zone. They can also just change the display language for the entire account. Now, on your accounts, right, so you have a live account, you have a section underneath where it says user for your billing information. So that's where you would change things like your credit card information, who the billing contact person is, right, the person who gets the invoices. You can see your service plan, and you can also see your previous invoices, excuse me. When you're done here, you just click on the close box over here to the top right, and you'll be taken back to the dashboard. So at the top here again, you can click on your name at any time to get back to that user page to change your own password, for example. To the right of your name, many of you will have a Dnd toggle for Do Not Disturb. Right, you can click that, and it'll flip it to be white, and then you're not going to receive calls, right? Your entire user is on Do Not Disturb. The reason I don't have it is because my user is part of an Acd queue. Acd Cues and Do Not Disturb do not work well together. To the right of that, we have the question mark icon or the help icon. It has a few little sub options here. So chat with us will open up a chat window, usually to the bottom right of your browser, and then you can chat in real time with one of our support staff. Learn more is going to open up a new tab, take you to our support pages, right? So you can see the individual guides for specific features. Web phone only shows up after you've added a web phone to your user, but when it's here, it opens a new tab that takes you to webphone.virtualpbx.net. That allows you to use Chrome or Firefox on a computer to make and receive calls. Oops. And then lastly, we have Online Store, opens a new tab, takes you to store.virtualpbx.com. That's where you can buy things like a VoIP phone, router, etc. You have this 3 horizontal line icon. We sometimes refer to it as the hamburger icon or simply the menu icon. And this will take you to other Dash features. We will touch on all of these to some degree or another, but we'll primarily be in the dashboard. That's where the majority of our time will be spent. And then we have the logout icon here. Now here in the middle, we have my total users, right? So these are all the people on my account who make and receive calls. The more people I add, most likely, the higher my bill. Most of our plans are based off of a per user basis. Now I have total devices, right? I have 32 devices on this account. Then I have a little breakdown here. First one here is soft phone. This means it's a software application to make and receive calls, right? Now, Dash was designed with VoIP phones in mind, VoIP meaning voice over internet protocol, and that just means uses your internet connection to make and receive calls. So a soft phone is software application that's going to be using your internet connection to make and receive calls. That can be on a computer, it can be on your tablets, it can be on your smartphone, right? This can be the VirtualPBX soft phone app, it could be someone else's app. Web phone, again, using that Chrome or Firefox. Technically a type of soft phone, but it was developed later, and we actually don't charge for the web phone. Right, cell phone, most of us know what a cell phone is. And SIP phone, this is a physical VoIP phone, right, piece of hardware, right? So SIP is a subtype of VoIP, right? There's different protocols that different VoIP phones will use, SIP being one of those. So if you're shopping for phones for use with us, you want to make sure it's a SIP phone, right? So compliant, SIP compatible. Unregistered devices, I mean, this is in reference to those SIP phones. 3 of them are unregistered, which means, or 2 of them are unregistered, excuse me, out of 5. So that just means 2 of them I can't send calls to, right? Now that could be they're not plugged in. That could be that they're having an internet problem. Maybe there's a router problem. We don't know. Then I have total phone numbers, 27. That means I have a total of 27 phone numbers on my account. Now, most of our plans include anywhere from 1 to 15 phone numbers as part of your monthly plan price. Anything over that, you're getting an overcharge, right, per phone number. Now, if you just signed up with us in the last, like week or so, you can check the pricing page. It will tell you what that overage is per phone number. Any of our older plans, you'd want to talk with our account services team. All right, so then we have a breakdown here of assigned numbers and spare numbers. Assigned number, that means I'm using it, right? Someone can dial it and expect to speak to someone or leave a voicemail, join a conference, or send a fax. Right. Spare number, a number on my account, so it still counts towards my allotment. I'm just not using it right now. Right now, that could be because we just had a promotion that ended, and I just want to stop taking calls for that promotion, right? It's no longer valid. It could be just I got a bunch of numbers in sequence, and I just haven't gotten to the last ones yet. And it could also be you're about to move into a new geographic location, so you got the phone numbers ahead of time while like those locations are getting set up, so that we can start the marketing materials and whatnot. All right, another breakdown here: USDID and US toll-free. US toll-free is US Canada toll-free, right? Just means 800 number, 888, all the way down to 833. Right? USDID, that just means a US local number. So if you have a number in Chicago, Illinois, it would show up here. Right? Likewise, if you had one in, say, San Jose, California, same thing. It would show up under that heading. Oops. I overclicked, pardon me. All right. You can have international numbers if you're so inclined. If you're interested in adding an international number, you're going to need to email our porting team, and that's PORTING @virtualpbx.com. They'll need to know the city and country that you're interested in. Excuse me. If there's additional requirements, the porting team will let you know, and then we submit that all to that country and get a phone number. They'll also let you know up front if we can't get a phone number for a specific area. All right, conference bridges. This just means I've enabled the conference feature on 2 of my users, right? So I have 2 people who can moderate or host a conference, excuse me. Over here to the right, I have my main numbers, right? So these 4 phone numbers all behave in the same fashion, right? They're going to the same location. They all have the same main greeting. Conference number, This is the phone number everyone dials to join my conferences, whether they're my staff members, vendors, or customers. Faxbox number, this is my inbound fax number. You can only have the one main Faxbox number. All right, then we got the company directory. This downloads a CSV file, has your staff members' names, their extension numbers, their primary devices. The softphone directory, this is for use with the VirtualPBX desktop softphone application. You would download this file, upload it to that softphone, and then you'll be able to see the status of the other softphones on your account, right? So if all your staff is using just the VirtualPBX softphone, then you know when people are on a call or not, right? Now, if your staff has a mix of devices, right? So say my colleague Jeff has a Yealing phone, right? On my soft phone, I can only tell if he's using his soft phone, right? I have no idea if he's on a call on his Yealing phone. Store discount code, just for being a Dash customer, you get a discount code for use in our online store, right? So save a little money on VoIP phones. And then you have the account realm, right? So each account has its own account realm. You use that for a couple of things. One, you use it to program a third-party soft phone, right? So someone else's soft phone app. It's one of the 3 pieces of information you would need. The other thing you use it for is for sending out a fax. So on Dash, to send a fax out, you have to use your email, right? You create an email like you normally do, but instead of putting your cousin Bob's email address in the to field, you put the plus sign, the number 1, then the area code and phone number you're faxing to, the @ symbol, and then your account realm. Then you just need to attach a PDF or TIFF file and click send. The system doesn't look at the subject line or the body of the email. It just looks at the to, the from, and the attachment. So, and just one attachment per email. All right, up here, we have the caller ID, which is shorthand for the company caller ID. This pull down up here at the top, this allows you to select any of your main numbers. It doesn't flash, or it tends not to work properly on my streaming software, so that's why I'm not clicking on it. But select any of your main numbers, and that becomes your default number for your VoIP phones and for a couple other features. Now you have the option to fill out the company caller ID name. This allows you to put in 15 characters, including spaces and special characters, that we will transmit as part of your outbound caller ID for your VoIP phones. And then you would have to, if you fill out the first part, you have to fill out the second part here, which is the company emergency information, or E911. And this just wants a North American address. And then you would click on Save Changes here at the bottom. Now, once you click on Save Changes, the company caller ID name information gets transmitted to the other carriers who support CNAME. It takes them about 3 business days to update their servers, give or take. Once that's done, when you make an outbound call, right, your call can route through any number of carriers. Unfortunately, not every carrier supports CNAME. So if your outbound call happens to route through one of those carriers, your CNAME information does not reach the destination. When you're making calls to cell phones, which is probably quite a bit, the cell phone carriers, they control what shows up on the cell phones in their network. In some cases, that means your CNAME information will not go through. And actually, most cases, it will not go through. Some mobile carriers want their subscribers to pay extra for company caller ID name information to show up on their cell phones. Like my carrier, this is a few years ago, they wanted an extra $10 a month for that feature. I personally wasn't willing to pay it, so I don't see that the company caller ID name information for all the calls that come in on my cell phone. Hold music. So on Dash, you can upload your own hold music. It will accept MP3, .wav, and .ogg files. You want to make sure they're recorded in mono and that they're under 1 megabyte. You would just click Upload here, find the file on your computer, and click the up arrow icon, then click on Save Changes. Now, hold music on Dash is defined as after a call has reached a user, and then the user has pressed hold on their VoIP phone. That's when this hold music file will play. All right, and then hours is actually part of main number. So let's just go to main number. So at the top, we have main company numbers, right? So these are those 4 phone numbers we were just seeing on the dashboard page. If I decide I no longer want to use one of these numbers, right, I can click unassign next to it. Now, that just removed it as a main number. It's still on my account, right? It just means a spare number now. But any place you can add a number, you'll have the option to add from spare or by numbers, right? Add from spare, just making use of one of those numbers you already have on your account. Right, so you click on the box in front of it, click add selected, and now it's here. Right, boom. By numbers is you're adding a new number. So if you're under your allotment, you're not going to get charged. For me, I would have an increase on my next bill. And then you have your options here for local or toll-free. Toll-free, right? You choose the toll-free prefix you want to work with. Click on search. The system's checking to see what's available. And that gives you a list of numbers that you can pick from. You can add multiple numbers if you're so inclined. Right, but you click add next to the number, it shows up here in the cart. I can just delete it, right? So I'm like, oh, I don't want that number after all. And then I can add this one instead. And then I click on by numbers. Now, this list that is showing up here, that's a dynamic list, meaning you're competing with other people in real time. So that's why the system is double checking, making sure no one else had taken the number while I was deciding which number to take. But now you see here, it's added. For local, slightly different in that you need to know the area code that you want to work with. Now, sometimes you will get this message, right, saying that there's no numbers in this area code available. That means that area code is exhausted, right? It's all out of phone numbers that are available. The best option to do here is go back to the search. And then you want to look up an overlay area code, right? So it's and what that just means is 2 or more area codes overlap each other on the same geographic space, right? So 310 has an overlay with 424, and there are plenty of 424 numbers, right? So your big metropolitan areas, you're going to want to double check for overlays. You can also look for nearby area codes, right? So like 310 and 424 are Los Angeles area codes. There are many other area codes right around there that I could also search for. All right, but same process beyond that, right? You just click add by numbers. The system verifies that it's still there, and then it adds the number to my account. Now again, dynamic lists, you're competing with people in real time. So you would want to avoid, right, adding a couple numbers to your cart and then walking away from your computer, right? Go to lunch, for instance, right? When you come back and click by numbers, those numbers may not actually be there anymore, and you may not be able to complete the transaction. Now, there's a little gear icon here next to each of these numbers. So you can update, right, the outbound CNAM information, as well as turn on the ability to accept inbound CNAM information, right? So you can see company names or people's names, right? So that's the way on your staff members' VoIP phones, it will show up. It gives them an idea of who they're talking to. You can edit the E911 information for each phone number. So that means every phone number can have its own E911 address. This then allows you, as another feature, to assign your VoIP phones to have different E911 information, right? So that way you can have the correct address for the location that your staff member is at. And we'll get to that when we get to the VoIP phones. Oops. Prepend, this is for your VoIP phone users. You can add text in front of the caller ID information that shows up on their VoIP phones displays. And that gives them a heads up about what the call might be about, right? So I could type in new location. Oops, helps if I don't have a typo. Right, if I click Save Changes. So now when a call comes in on this particular phone number, right, on my VoIP phone's displays for my staff members, it'll say new location and then the phone number of the person who's calling in. Right, so it gives my staff members an idea of what the call might be about. And again, if you don't want to use a number, just unassign it, and now it becomes a spare number. Okay, office hours strategy. By default, you start off at 24-hour open office. Oops. but then you can change it to be custom office hours. If you do that, for each day of the week that you're open, you want to put a check mark in front of that day. And then you set your open hours in 24-hour or military time in these boxes here to the right. Also down at the bottom, you have the option to say you're closed for lunch, right? That means your whole system will be closed for lunch at the same time, right? So everyone goes to lunch roughly the same time. If you put a check mark here, then you have boxes so you can set your lunch hours, again, in that 24-hour or military time. And then you click on Save Changes. Now, one thing to keep in mind, right? We're all under main numbers, so that's what all of this impacts, right? So the office hours strategy involves my main numbers. Now, for my main numbers, what are my office holidays? So first, are you closed for them, right? If you are, you put a check mark. Then over here to the right, you have Add Holiday. You have the option here for single day, date range, or advanced. Whichever ones you click on, it creates a new row, right? You need to give it a name. So like I have here, New Year's Eve, and I choose a month and a date. I click on Save Changes, right? Date range, I have down here for Xmas break. I choose a start date and an end date, Save Changes. Now, we recommend against having a date range that includes New Year's Eve and New Year's Day because there's no year indicator. In the past, this caused a problem and it put systems in closed mode all year. That hasn't happened in quite some time, but just to be safe, we recommend not having a date range that includes New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. As an advanced option here, that's like I have here for Thanksgiving, give it a name, choose the month, and then in this middle pull down, I choose 1st through 5th or last, and then day of the week, right? So third Thursday in November, we're closed for Thanksgiving. And you can click on the little trash can icon to remove any holiday. Next up, we have incoming call handling. So for my main numbers, how do I want my system to handle my calls during my open hours? And how do I want them to handle it during my after hours? And how do I want the system to handle calls during my holidays? They have the same basic options. So first option here is calls go to the virtual receptionist or auto attendant. Over here on the left under main menu, right? These are the menu options my customers can press to navigate through my phone system. Down here at the bottom, or towards the bottom, I click on Add Route. That gives me a new row. This first pull down, I have 0 through 9, as well as the start key and the default action. This second pull down is basically everything on your account. So you would need to have like your users created or your groups already, right? Because that's the destination. But up here, I'll show you the pull down to do. So Smart PBX directory, right? User directory, dial by name directory. Users, right? You're sending a menu option to a specific person. Call queues, if you're making use of Acd queues, right? You're sending calls to a queue, so like your support team, sales team, etc. Devices, that means you're sending calls to a specific phone. Now, if that phone has its own built-in answering machine or voicemail, that's fine, right? The only concern is if you're sending it to a phone that doesn't have its own built-in voicemail. So like if you have the web phone, you wouldn't want to have a menu option go to the web phone necessarily, because if someone doesn't pick up, your inbound caller is just ringing and ringing and ringing until they finally decide to hang up, whatever that time is. Media, this would play a media file, meaning like a greeting, right? So like you could have hours of operation, directions, but when the media file is finished playing, the call ends. Next up, we have groups. These are departments, essentially, right? Group of people who can answer calls about the similar topic. Advanced call flows, this is if you're making use of submenuing, like 1 for English, 2 for Spanish, right? Each one of those would have its own menu and greeting. And then finally, voicemail boxes, where someone can press a menu option so they can just leave a message. Over here, we have your greeting options. First up is text-to-speech, right, TTS. You'd simply type in what you want the system to say. You would click Update, Save, and Save Changes. This uses what you type in with a computerized or robotic voice. You have up to 250 characters to work with, right? Characters, not words. Doesn't count spaces. So you have a limit, basically. You can sometimes go above 250. I've gotten some to work at 300, but 250 works consistently. Now, every time you type in a text-to-speech greeting, the system reuses the same file name. Right? In this case, main open hours, right? And then menu TTS. Right? So if I come back here and make a small change, now I'll have two files names for main open hours menu TTS. My recommendation is if you're making use of a TTS greeting, right, text-to-speech, that after you create it, you go to your greetings tab, which we'll be getting to shortly, and rename the file, right? Just so it's something different, right? Main greeting 1, that sort of thing. So that way you know, like, oh, I didn't like main greeting 1. Let me switch it to main greeting 2. It's easy to do. You can upload your own files. .wav, .mp3, .ogg, recorded in mono, right? Just choose the file to find it on your computer, click Update, Save, and Save Changes. Choose from existing recordings. This pull down shows all your existing menu greeting files, right? Whether they're main greetings, they're voicemail greetings, they're hold music files, they'll all show up in this list. So as you can see here, I have main open hours menu TTS. I don't know which one that is. Now the pull down doesn't work, so I won't show it there. All right. You can record a greeting over the phone. Now the system says right here with a phone registered on this account, what that means is a VoIP phone that's on the account. So, and this is a security feature, right? It just wants you to pick up a VoIP phone, dial your main number, enter in this PIN number, which is specific to this time of day, and then it will walk you through recording your greeting. Right? So like if you just signed up for us, for example, and you called your main number, right now you'll get a message saying that no greeting has been recorded for this menu. It will then prompt you for the PIN number. Now, let's say you just signed up, you ordered VoIP phones from us, right? They haven't arrived yet, right? Because your account is ready, but the VoIP phones are in process. But you want to get things set up in terms of your greeting. If you want to record, say, from your cell phone, you go down here under settings, this one right here, allow outside recording, you want to flip this to on, right? So now you have disabled or removed that restriction to only use a VoIP phone on the account. So you can call in from your cell phone. You either hear that message that there's no greeting there, or if you already have a greeting file in place, you'll hear the existing greeting play. You enter in the PIN number, right? Either when prompted, or if you have a greeting file in place, you can just enter the PIN number and the system will recognize it. And then the system will walk you through recording a greeting over the phone. Now, if you have a greeting file in place, then you're overwriting that file, right? The greeting file name will stay the same. You're just overwriting the content. And then lastly, there's option here for professional recording. When you click order, this will open up a new tab and take you to Snap Recordings. You can order a greeting from them. They have like 100 voice actors and actresses to choose from, different versions of English, French, and Spanish. So you can do multilingual greetings. They have hold treatment, etc. They bill themselves, right, via credit card. They send the file to you via email. And then all you have to do is upload your own file. So these are, settings, sorry. So these two are somewhat related, right? Number of retries on missed dial and dialing timeout. So number of retries on missed dial is how many times your inbound caller can make a mistake. The dialing timeout is how much time the system listens for additional button presses, right? So caller calls in, they hear your main greeting. Let's say they press 7. The system waits to a count of 5, right? That's the dialing timeout. just to make sure they're not adding additional digits for an extension. Right? After that, it goes, oh, you're done. That's not a menu option. There's no extension number 7. Now I'm going to let you have a retry, right? Your first retry. Right? That would keep repeating until either the inbound caller had a valid menu option or they had a total of 5 missed attempts in this case. Right? After that 5th attempt, right, it still waits for that 5 count until make sure there's not extra digits. And then it either sends the call to a default route or a default action, right? In this case, the smart BBX directory. Now, if I don't have a default action, then after that last attempt, the system says we did not recognize your entries, and then ends up that says goodbye and ends the call. Now, I usually have dialing timeouts at or retries, at 1 or 2. A dialing timeout anywhere from 3 to 5 is typically plenty. We already covered the allow outside recordings. So now allow dialing extensions. By default, this is on. And what that just means is it's allowing the inbound caller to enter the extension number. If they know it, it will then transfer the call. If I turn this off, that means my inbound caller can only press menu options. The system will treat extension numbers as an invalid option. And then here we have the suppress the playing of the invalid entry. By default, it's off, meaning that it plays that message saying, you did not recognize your entry, goodbye. If you don't want that message to play, you just turn this on. So now any changes you make to your main menu, your greetings, or these settings, you need to click Save here. Right, takes you back to your incoming call handling page. You need to click Save Changes here. Now all your changes will take effect. Right, the second option here, right, calls are being offered to Aaron. If he doesn't pick up, it goes to my virtual receptionist. This is a pull down, right? So I can select other users. I can select a call queue. I can select a device. And in this case, the device is fine because after a set mount, it's going to go to your virtual receptionist. You can play a media file. I actually don't recommend it here just because you might end up having 2 media files play back to back, and that could confuse people or frustrate people. Groups, right? You can send it to like your front desk group, right? This is a live operator answer option is what it's defined as. So now in this case, I'm offering it to multiple people, and then it goes to my virtual receptionist. Now we're still in my open hours, so we're on that virtual receptionist we're just looking at. However, if I go to after hours and click on the virtual receptionist, it's a different menu, right? Because different time of day, you can have different menu options as well as likely a different greeting. Third option here, similar options, right? You can offer it to users, groups, devices, a media file, a queue, etc. It does have one additional option though, where you can say skip to voicemail. And then the second box is a voicemail box on the account. Right? So either you're offering to somebody or to a media file, or you're sending calls straight to voicemail. And if no one picks up, obviously the calls would go to the voicemail box. This fourth one here isn't used very often, and that's to send calls to a secondary attendant. It only shows up if you have multiple auto attendants on your account and you've enabled at least one of those attendants to be available in the main menu. Right? So if you don't have that feature, obviously you won't be able to make use of it. Or even if you have multiple attendants, if they're all standalone attendants, meaning they're unavailable in main menu, this won't show up as an option. Your main conference number, you can have multiple conference numbers, right? So you can add from spare or buy new. You can also have a custom text-to-speech greeting. When you click enable, just type in what you want. Again, 250 characters. And then click on save. Even without a greeting, the system will say welcome to the conference and then prompt the inbound caller to enter the conference room number and then the PIN number. Main fax box number, you can only have one main fax box number. But once you do, you can click Edit Faxbox here. And you have the inbound notification email address. And that is, so whenever an inbound fax comes in, that this email address will get an email, right, saying, hey, new fax comes in. There'll be information about the call, right, the date, the time, the phone number involved. Then there'll be an attachment, a PDF that they can look at to view the fax. Now, one thing to keep in mind is if someone dials your fax box number, right, here's fax tones and then hangs up, that this email address is still going to get an email, but they're saying that there was a failed inbound fax attempt. Now, obviously, if you were expecting a fax and you get that email that there was a failed attempt, you'd have some concerns. But if you weren't expecting anything and you get those emails, especially if it's not from a number you recognize, it just might be someone dialed your fax box number and hung up. The email permissions, this is set up to enter your company domain name in. And that means after you enter your company's domain and click on Save Changes, anyone at your company can send a fax out via your Dash system, even if they're not a user on the account, right? They just need the correct format, that +1, area code and phone number, @symbol, account realm, and then attach a PDF or TIFF file. All right, auto attendance. This is a plan-specific feature, right? Meaning it's available on some plans and not others. If you're interested in this, you're going to want to talk to our account services team. But basically, used for a couple different purposes. One, for that submenuing I mentioned before, right? One for English, two for Spanish. You would create separate attendants for those other languages, like I have here. And you would make them available in main menu. So that way they can be a menu option from your main numbers. And if I click on the little gear icon here, or the wrench icon, right, they have their own virtual receptionist. You set up their own menu options, right? You set up their own greetings. The other use case would be if you want to have, if you have multiple small businesses that you're running and they go to the same staff members, right? Or you just want them all on one account, right? So here you would add it, you would leave it unavailable in main menu, right? So then you can assign its own phone number to it or multiple phone numbers. And again, under the icon, the wrench icon here, you have this, it would have its own menu options, its own greeting. Right, up here at the top, that's where you would add new attendants. Just give it a name, give it an extension number. The extension number, pretty much only for use for your staff, right? Your customers are probably never gonna know the attendant's extension number. You then click on Create Attendant. When you click on its name, it starts off as unavailable in main menu, right? So if you want it to be a menu option, you need to click here. And now it's available in main menu, right? After I click on Save Changes, otherwise I leave it alone. Right, adding the number, right, by either add from spare or by new. Now, you may not have noticed this while I was clicking through fairly quickly earlier, right? But you have open hours, after hours, and holidays, right? This all matches what you set up under the main number. So all of your auto attendants have the same open hours and holidays, etc. All right, next up we have devices. Shows your devices on the account. Green means it's registered, meaning we can send calls to it. Right, red, unregistered, meaning we can't send calls to it. That could just be like someone's not logged in. And let's see if, black just means you've turned it off, right? This one is off. I could do that here. Now it's black, turn it back on. Now it will be, since it's a cell phone, it will turn green. Here at the top, you add devices. You have these options. SIP phone, again, that physical VoIP device, right, sits on a desk. You have these manufacturers to choose from, right? Some have a lot of devices, some not as many. But basically, you need to find the make and model of the phone you want to work with. right? Click on it here, and then you give it a name, right? I usually say person's name phone, right? So Bob's phone, or the location, right? Break room phone. And then we need the MAC address. This is unique to each device, often a sticker on the back of the device. If the device is plugged in, typically you can get the MAC address from its status or basic settings options, but you would enter that information here, and then you click on Create Device. The only other thing you need to do in the dashboard is assign that device to a user and then unlock it. Now, and in fact, you can unlock it on this page here. Assuming I had a VoIP phone. Oh, here. Click on the little wrench icon here. Under Advanced Miscellaneous, click on Unlock, and then you can start on the provisioning process. Now, that provisioning process, that's done through the phone's its own user interface, right? It has a web user interface typically. So basically, you get the IP address of the phone, you enter that IP address into a browser on your computer. Your computer and that phone need to be on the same network. You'll have a login page, and then you need to enter in a URL. Basically, you're telling the phone, hey, go here to get your config file. It will do so. It's going to reboot a couple times, typically, and then show up as a green device. For the specifics of that, under our support pages, you're looking for the document called Auto Provisioning Phones. It's going to have screenshots of these various manufacturers, the proper syntax for the URL, right? Because it slightly differs between each manufacturer. There'll usually be a couple settings that the document will have you confirm. Basically follow that. It should eventually turn into a green device. Cell phone and landline are the same in terms of you just need to give it a name, right? So Bob's phone. And then under number, you put +1 area code and phone number. And then you click on Create Device. So we'll go down here to this demo device here, right? So I gave it a name, +1 area code and phone number. If we go to the advanced options, let's save changes. All right. So this is default settings. So what happens is call comes in and then we send it to the system, our system here, right? Then we send it out to your cell phone, right? Your cell phone will ring. When you pick up, you're gonna hear a message from the system saying, this is a forwarded call. Please press 1. When you press 1, you're telling the system, yes, you're there, and yes, you want to take this call. Right? It then connects the call to you. Now, if, for instance, you added a cell phone, but you're actually sending it to an automated answering service to handle your calls for after-hours business, right? Well, that automated answering service doesn't know when to press 1, right? It just picks up a call. So what you would want to do is put a check mark here where it says allow use of cell phone's voicemail. So now when we send the call to this phone number, when we hear that pickup tone, we connect the call. We don't wait for the pressing of 1. In fact, we don't play that message. Now, if this is your actual cell phone and you have it set this way, if your cell phone voicemail picks up, right, the system still treats that like a connected call, so that inbound caller can end up on your personal cell phone's voicemail box. Some people want that, some people don't. Right, the other one thing that comes up here is keep original caller ID. So by default, what happens is you say customer Mary calls in, gets to your cell phone on your user, right? You see customer Mary's phone number. You don't recognize the number. You've had many robodialers today or political calls. So you just let it go to voicemail, right? Maybe you're able to catch up with customer Mary later and complete the transaction. Maybe you lost business. So what you could do is uncheck this option here. So instead of seeing customer Mary's phone number show up on your cell phone, you see your main phone number. Let's go back to the dashboard. What I mean by that, under company call ID, this number that you selected in this pull down is what you would see on your cell phone instead of customer Mary's phone number. So it's a way for you to let you know, oh, this is a work call. let me pick it up. Soft phone. So on the devices page, when you add a soft phone, it only allows you to add a third-party soft phone, right? So you're not going to be able to add the VirtualPBX soft phone here, right? So you're using someone else's soft phone app, but you would give it a name, copy and paste the SIP username, click on the SIP password box to see the SIP password, so then you can copy and paste it, and then you need the account realm, right? Those are the 3 pieces of information you need to set up that third-party soft phone. And then you click on Create Device and assign it to a user. The other thing to keep in mind is for the VirtualPBX soft phone, under Advanced Audio, okay, what just happened? There we go. These are the codecs to use. Now, typically, for just the VirtualPBX soft phone, all you need is Opus. For your VoIP devices, you want the G711A and G711U. You don't necessarily need Opus. Actually, I guess I should not have done that. Restrictions, this would be if you need to restrict access to like international dialing. External caller ID, you can select one of your phone numbers on your account, so that way this phone always displays that particular phone number as its outbound caller ID. Emergency caller ID, right? That's your E911. So again, you select one of your phone numbers on the account, and then whenever this device calls 911, right, that's the phone number it shows as well as the address. Right, so that way emergency services are going to the correct location. The Greetings tab, right, shows your Greetings Manager, shows your different greetings on the account. Upload means you uploaded the file, right? TTS means it was a text-to-speech file originally. Recording means you recorded it over the phone. You can add new files by uploading here, right? Just give it a name and then click on Browse to find the file. Click on Create Greeting and then uploads it. Again, .wav, .mp3, .ogg, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. But here you can see the various file names. So here I have a main open hours menu TTS. I can download it here, right? This little icon here. So I can listen to it to see if it's relevant. Or I can click on this little wrench icon. So now here I can change the name. Right? Or I can just remove it if I don't want it at all, right? But then if I change the name, I save changes. And now demo 1 is here. It's still text-to-speech, but now at least I have an idea what it might be about instead of just having another main open hours menu TTS message. Groups, short for ring groups or hunt groups, right? Departments. This is an included feature. Up here at the top, you click on Add Group. You give it a name and an extension number. If you need to find one, you can click on Find One, and this will show you your existing extensions, or just search for an extension. It'll let you know if it's already in use. Beyond that, you just need to click and drag your staff members that you want to be in the group, and then you click on Create Group. Once a group is created, you can click on its name, right? So you can change the name at any time. You also have group call attempts. This is how many times the system will offer calls to the members of the group. Little arrows here to the right, so you can increase or decrease it as you need to. You also can delete the group here or save changes for any changes you make. Next up, we have the group members box, right? So this shows your staff members who are in this group, and with in this case, also the order that they're being offered the calls. I have timestamps here across the top, and this last one I can edit, right? So I can change it to, say, 240. Now, it maintained the current ring times, right? So now after this last one, there's no time. Wouldn't really make sense, but I can click Distribute now, and equalize it out over that whole 240. These are sliders, so I can adjust. So I'm going to set up what's called blast ringing or ring all. Right, you just click and drag. Right, but I don't have to do that, right? I can do things like, oops, like that. So I have different offsets or whatnot in my routing. Now I can also change the order. Let's say I know Gio has a project coming up. Aaron just finished his project, so he's got the most time. So then I can click distribute. So now it's ringing in this order, right? So Aaron's first now because he starts off at 0. Right, but yeah, just click and drag so you can change the order and then click distribute. Right, if you don't click distribute, you're not actually changing the order. You're just changing how it looks. But Geo is still first, right? He's at 0. You can also do things like that, right? So you have 2 people start at the same time, etc. But any changes you make, click on Save Changes. Groups can have extension numbers. You can have multiple extension numbers if you're so inclined. Groups can also have their own phone numbers. You can add from spare or by new. Now, these phone numbers, right, they're not main numbers or auto attendant numbers, so this doesn't have an hours of operation, right? Meaning this number is open 24/7. Here you've got group features, ring back. So in terms of by default, right, if you don't have this enabled, right, call comes into this group, it's offered to my staff members. When my staff members' phones start to ring, that ringing sound is then piped back to my inbound caller, right, my customer. So they hear that ringing sound, right, so they know the call is continuing. If I don't want that ringing sound to come back to the inbound caller, then I would enable ringback and then upload an MP3 or OGG or WAV file, right? Either select one that's already on my system or upload a new one and then click on Save Changes. Now, if for some reason when we offer the call to your users and their phone doesn't actually give us that ring sound, right? Let's say it gives a busy tone instead. Since there's no ringing sound to come back to the inbound caller, there's nothing for the system to replace it with. So the inbound caller just hears silence. That does not happen very often. Next action, pretty important feature. It's essentially saying, hey, if no one answers, what do you want to do with the call? Hold down. All right, you can send them back to the main menu, send it to one of your other auto attendants that's available in main menu. You can send it to a different call queue. You can send it to a specific phone. You can send it to a specific user. You can send it to another group. You can send it to a specific device or to a voicemail box. And then you'll click on Save Changes. Allow call forwarding. If you enable this, that means your users can make use of call forwarding from their phones. Right? So they're not at their normal desk phone. And then caller ID prepend, if enabled, allows you to add additional text or numbers. And that actually should be numbers in front of the caller ID that shows up on your staff members' displays. Now, groups and Acd queues are related, right? In terms of you're offering calls to multiple people. In groups, your staff members can answer calls with cell phones, landlines, or VoIP phones. Acd queues, currently you can only answer calls with VoIP phones. Right, so no cell phones, no landlines. Groups can only have an extension number or a phone number. They cannot have both. But queues also have the advantage of that your staff members have some control, right? They can log themselves in and out of the queue, mark themselves away. Whereas in a group, right, once they're assigned to a group, they're in it, right? They don't have any control to be logged out or logged in other than clicking on DND for themselves, right, for Do Not Disturb. The other thing to keep aware of for your members who are in a group, there's a feature called, a user feature called Follow Me, right, which allows you to just designate which phones ring in which order. Calls from the group ignore that. It just rings all of their phones, right? So if Gio, he's got 3 phones, On his user, right, we have the user feature set up so it rings his soft phone first, then his cell phone, then his web phone. That would work for any call, for anyone who calls his extension number directly, right? But when he gets a call from this front desk group, it rings all of them at the same time. All right, numbers starts you off in your spare or numbers in use, which shows you where your numbers are going. Right, you can't unassign a number here or anything like that, but at least you know where it is and then where to go so you can unassign it. You have a little gear icon so you can update the caller ID, the E911, and the prepend. Spare numbers, this shows you numbers you're not using. Now, if you want to remove some of these numbers, keep an eye up here where it says numbers and then by and port. Click on the box in front of numbers you want to remove. Now I have the option to delete. Click on that. It says, are you sure? Confirm it. And now the numbers are removed from my account, right? So now I have less phone numbers on my account. So I saved a little bit of money per month. Right, by numbers, local toll free, we just add them as a spare number so you can assign them later. Port actually starts the port process. Give it a name, choose local or toll free. Then the system wants you to upload a PDF of your bill with your current carrier, right? So like AT&T. Acknowledge that it's within 30 days. It's going to ask you for the phone numbers you want to port, the address that's associated with those phone numbers that AT&T in this case has on file for you. It would give you an opportunity to download a blank letter of agency or LOA. Then you would upload a completed and signed LOA. You want to, it asks for an email address and what your date you want the numbers to complete on. For that date, make sure it's in the future, right? If you put it the same date that you just submitted on, that's not going to happen. What else does it ask you for? Oh, there's 4 checkboxes that it asks you to check on, and then you click submit. When you're done with that submission, you'll get an automated email right away saying, hey, you submitted a port request. By the next business day, you should get another email from our porting team where an actual person has looked at your request and is processing it. Now, in general, porting takes time, right? Local numbers typically average 2 to 3 weeks. Sometimes they can be very fast, but usually it's 2 to 3 weeks. Toll-free numbers usually 3 to 5 business days. And in both cases, that assumes everything we got is correct, right? If there's an error message that we get, like a rejection, it's not always very specific, right? So sometimes it will be address mismatch. But we won't know for sure if it's the street address or the zip code necessarily. But we will double check to make sure there wasn't a typo on our side. But assuming that everything we have matches the information you gave us, then we have to let you know saying the other carrier is saying it's wrong. So then you would have to contact the carrier and say, well, what is the information that I need to get this number to port? All right, users shows all your users on the account. Gray person icon, standard user. Person with the blue suit, system admin, right? So they can do all the things we've been talking about here so far. Up here at the top, you click on add user. You fill out the form, right? So first and last name, you should probably know that for whoever you're adding. The email address used for login, that has to be unique for each user, right? So you can't reuse email addresses. Create a password for the user, and then give them their main extension number. Now the system will give you a suggestion, right? So this account started with extension 1000. So it's saying the next available in that series is 1021. I don't have to follow that. Right? I can add my own extension number. Now, by default, the system creates a voicemail box for this user. Right? That voicemail box is intrinsically tied to the user. So like if I created this user, I added a VoIP phone, and it got registered right away, that user can pick up their VoIP phone, dial *98 from their VoIP phone, goes directly to this voicemail box I just created for them. The system will then ask that person to create their PIN number and then walk them through creating their voicemail greeting. include in the user directory. Put a check mark here if you want them to be in there, or don't if you don't. You can always change your mind later. Send emails to an alternate address. So by default, any emails the system needs to send to this user, it will send to the email address used for login, right? So like their credentials, password resets, voicemail notifications, right? All of that would go to the email address used for login. If for some reason you don't want that to happen, or the user doesn't, right, you would put a check mark here and then enter in a different email address here, right? So that way, instead of sending everything to the email address used for login, it sends everything to this other email address. And again, you can change that later. And then lastly, send credentials to the user, right? So they have their login information. I think that's useful. Now, if you need to add multiple people, create user and add another. If you just needed to add the one, just click on create user. Once a user is created, you can click on their name, right? So you can always change their name. If you click on change credentials here, you can change their email address or their password. And then you also have the option here to resend them the password reset email. So they can create their own password. You can change the voicemail box PIN number if you need to. Here's the option to send to an alternate address. Here's the user directory. Here on the right here, this pull down, that's where you would change a user to an admin or an admin to a user. This is the time zone for the user, right? Just do a search for the nearest major city. Little flag here is the display language for the user, right? You have to choose options of English, French, German, or Russian. And that's just the web pages for that specific user. Ringing timeout, default is 20 seconds, which is plenty of time for a landline or VoIP phone. If this user is primarily using cell phones, you would want to increase this to 30 seconds, if not 40 to 45. In terms of how PBX system works, right? We get the call, we send it to the user, and then whatever user device has, right? So if it's a landline, we send it to the landline telecom. They say, oh, it's right here. They send the call straight through. When we send the call out to a cell phone telecom company, right? They say, hold on a second, we need to find them, right? They ping all the cell phone towers, they find you, then they route the call to you. That delay is why you would need a longer ring duration for calls going to a cell phone. Extensions, right? Users can have multiple extensions if you want them to. I just click on add an extension. If you need to change a user's extension number, I recommend adding the new extension number first, right? Then clicking Save Changes. And you come back here and then unassign the original extension and then click on Save Changes. Users can have their own phone numbers, right? Add from spare, buy new. Just like in groups, this phone number doesn't have hours of operation, right? So this phone number is available 24/7. Now, devices, you can add from spare, buy new, right? Most of the options are the same. The big difference here is for soft phone, right? You still get that warning message, but after you click that warning message, in the box that shows up, it starts off looking pretty much the same as on the devices page, right? Device name, SIP username, SIP password. But down here at the bottom, it says use third-party application. That's the big difference between the devices page and the users page. You click on that where it says use third-party application, and now it says use VirtualPBX application. So I just need to give it a name, and then I click on create device. After I click on create device, I click on save changes. Aaron would then get an email with his login information and download links for the VirtualPBX soft phone application. All right, you don't get that option on the devices page. The other thing I typically add here is the web phone, because the web phone, you have to log into it, and it uses your dash login. So you just give it a name, click on create device, click on save changes, then Aaron can go to webphone.virtualpbx.net, use his dash login information, and then use Chrome or Firefox to make and receive calls. All right, user features, caller ID number. This only works for users that have their own phone number. And what you're doing when you click on Save Changes, for instance, is now when this user makes an outbound call from their VoIP phones, it's this phone number on their user is their outbound caller ID, not the main company number. Virtual text. This is a new feature. Basically, when you turn it on, you select the phone number. Now, the phone numbers you have to choose from are a user's personal number, right, that's assigned to the user, or a main number or auto attendant number. And then you click on Save Changes. Now, once you do that, this user would get an email from Virtual Text giving him login information. He has the same status as he has on your Dash account, right? So David here is an admin here. He would be an admin in Virtual Text. If you're an existing customer who's been with us for a while and you were interested in Virtual Text, you want to check with our account services team. It does require a plan change. The voicemail box feature. Oh, that's weird. All right. So first, this is default settings, right? It's enabled and voicemail to email is enabled. And that just means the system attaches an email or attaches a MP3 file to the email notification. Transcription is a plan-specific feature. And that just means the system basically listens to the voicemail and tries to type it out in that email notification. Does the best that it can. If there's a lot of background noise or people aren't speaking into the microphone properly, it will be less accurate. Now, voicemail boxes can hold up to 100 messages. After that, they're full and cannot accept any more. So that means the user or you as an admin would have to go in and delete the existing voicemail box or voicemail messages so the voicemail box can accept more. Now, if you have someone that's a habitual problem for them, then you have this option here, right? Delete the messages from the system after the notification has been sent out. Right, so basically voicemail gets left, system sends email with an attachment of that MP3 file, says, okay, the message was emailed out, it deletes that voicemail from the voicemail box. This means that your user can only check their voicemails via email, right? If you leave this unchecked, right, then they can check their voicemails via their user portal or by calling in over the phone, as well as their email. But obviously, at some point, they need to make sure they go through and delete voicemail messages so they don't get full. All right, follow me. This is for users with multiple devices. When you first enable it, it looks like this, right? You need to tell the system what devices to ring and for how long. When you uncheck it, it actually will show up like this, right? So both of them are 0 seconds. So you just need to click and drag the duration that you want them to ring. Now, this is very similar to groups in that I can change the order, right? I can click distribute, etc. However I want it. And again, if this user is in a group, right, calls from that group, ignore the follow me settings. Faxbox, you can choose to have your users have their own individual fax boxes if you want them to. I recommend making use of a phone number for these fax boxes. That way your user can send and receive faxes. You do have the option to use an extension number. If you choose to do this, this user can only ever receive faxes. They're never going to be able to send a fax out. And that's because when the system tries to send a fax out from a user with a fax box with an extension number, it uses that extension number as the outbound caller ID, which will fail because that's not long enough. Now, if your main fax box is already set up and you put the company domain there, right, then for most cases, most of your users probably don't need their own fax box. Just depends on their role. Conference bridge. When you click enable, the main thing you need to do is create a PIN number. And then click on Save Changes. Your staff members can change the PIN number for the conference rooms themselves via the user portal. Call forwarding. You have off, on, or failover mode. Now, your users can turn call forwarding off or on their own via the user portal or even from their VoIP phones. Failover mode is what you can set up for them. And what this means is their VoIP phone becomes unregistered and a call comes to the user at that time. With failover mode, the system will automatically forward the calls to the phone number you designated. And then you click on Save Changes. Customize call recording. When you first enable it, it looks like this, right? You need to tell the system what kind of calls to record. Inbound, internal, right? My coworker Bob called me. Right, inbound, external, customer Mary called me. Right, outbound, internal, I called coworker Bob. Right, outbound, external, I called customer Mary. And the format, typically MP3 is best just because it has a better compression level than .wav. So you just click on Save Changes. Now, every account includes some level of storage as part of your monthly plan price. If you go over it, you're paying per gigabyte. So for the specifics for your account, I would recommend talking to our account services team, or again, if you just signed up, double check the pricing page. Music on hold, your users can have their own hold music if you want them to. Right? You just enable it, either find the file from the pull down or upload an mp3.ogg or .wav file recorded in mono under 1 megabyte, click upload, then click on Save Changes. And again, this plays after they've pressed hold on their VoIP phone. Do not disturb, that means you're saying all calls to this user go to voicemail or aren't offered to them in a group. Hot desking is a VoIP feature. You set up a hot desk ID number for the user, up to you if you want to include a PIN number or not. Then you click on Save Changes. What this is for is in a shared office environment or hybrid scheduling. So for instance, I come into the office on Tuesday. I sit down at a desk with a VoIP phone, say desk number 2. I pick up the VoIP phone, I hit *11, right? That turns on hot desking on that phone. The system asks me for my hot desk ID and then PIN number if that was required, and then tells me that all calls will be sent to this device, right? So now for the rest of my business day, right, calls that are coming to my user ringing at the phone that I'm sitting at. Next time I come into the office, or at the end of my day, I pick up the VoIP phone, I hit *12 to turn off hot desking. Right, next time I come into the office, let's say it's Friday, Felicia's already sitting at desk number 2. I say, hey, good morning. I sit down at desk number 5. Same thing, right? *11, enter my hot desk ID, and now I'm getting calls at desk number 5. All right, voicemail boxes. Shows all your voicemail boxes on the account. If they have a name in this column, that means this was a voicemail box created when the user was created. If it doesn't, then this was either a system-created voicemail box, like the main voicemail box is, or up here at the top, you can create your own voicemail boxes. Right? You give it a name, give it a voicemail box number, right, which should be different from any other voicemail box, and then a PIN number, right? So that way you can access that voicemail box from the phone. Then you click on Create a Voicemail Box. You can click on the little wrench icon here, so you can always review this information, right, in case you need to check the voicemail or change the greeting, etc., or you need to change this information. Under Advanced Greeting Media, you can upload a media file directly to the voicemail box, right? MP3, OGG.wav, recorded in mono. You notice there's 2 fields, there's media and temporary. Temporary is your out of office or vacation voicemail message. So if you have something selected here, it will play no matter what, even if you have something already set up in media. Once you send temporary back to none, then the media file will play. Right? The media is your default for your normal greeting. Next up is recipients. Now your user voicemail boxes already have a built-in recipient, right? The email address used for login. But for any voicemail box, you can come to this recipients page, click Add New Recipient, and then enter in the email address. Right? If you need to keep adding people, just click Add. Right? It'll create a new box, enter a new email address. Once you're done, you click on Save Changes. And now whenever this voicemail box gets a message, all of the email addresses you've stipulated will get a message, right? A new email. Then we have the options. So once you have a greeting media file in place and recipients in place, you can click on Already Set Up. Right here, you can also adjust, are we deleting after notification? Are we attaching the voicemail to the email? Announce only mode is if you want a voicemail box that's there just to give out a message, right? So like your hours of operation or show times, that sort of thing. And then you click on Save Changes. Advanced routing, this is for direct inward system access, or DISA. DISA allows you to call into your system from a cell phone or landline. You log in over the phone. You can then make an outbound call from your system, and instead of your cell phone number showing up as the outbound caller ID, it's your main company number. Now, this feature is not enabled on new accounts, right? When you first sign up. If this is something you're interested in, you do need to talk to our account services team. But once it is, then you click here and you click Enable. And the system already generated a PIN number for me. Now, this current setup means I would need to set up DISA as a menu option under my virtual receptionist, right? Like menu option 9, right? So then when I press menu option 9 from the virtual receptionist, it will ask me for a PIN number, this one. And then out of here, dial tone, right? Then I can make an outbound call. That is not the recommended way to make use of DISA because someone eventually will find out about DISA being a menu option, right? Some people just like pressing buttons, right? And they'll hear dial tone again, or they'll be prompted for a PIN number. And they won't know the PIN number if they're not on your staff, but there are people out in the world, bad actors, who will decide they'll take that as a challenge and they'll try to figure out the PIN number. Once they do, they can start making outbound calls on your account and you're not going to know about it. So what I typically recommend is click Edit Settings. You can change the PIN number, so it's not quite so simple as this one is. But more importantly, add an extension number. And again, an extension number that's not part of your normal sequence, right? So this account has mostly extension 1000s. I would want to make this extension number, in this case, a 7000 series number, right? So therefore, there's no reason for someone calling in to think that, oh, I'll just enter this random extension number, right? If they're trying to fool around on my system, they would stick with extension 1000s to see what happens. But so now, with an extension number, I can call into my main number that rings to my virtual receptionist. I entered this weird extension number I just created. The system will then ask me for this PIN number. Then I hear dial tone, right? Then I enter the area code and phone number I'm trying to reach. I hopefully connect with that person. And instead of showing my cell phone number, right, it's my main number, this 323 phone number. So that way I'm not giving out my personal cell phone number to different customers. Now, one way to know that you might be having outbound calls on your account that you don't authorize would be via the call logs. So the call logs show your call history, right? I went all the way to the month just so I had enough. Here I have this green arrow to the right. That's an inbound call. Actually, this one here. This one here, I can see that it was offered to the soft phone, but no one picked up. Right, yellow arrow to the left. Right, that's an outbound call, but I can see here it came from this device, so I know it's a legit call. Right, it came from a staff member's phone. Now, each of these options, you have an option to download. Right, it downloads a CSV file. So if you're good with spreadsheets, you can gain a lot of information about your call activity on the account. For custom, you can set your date range. The system will let you go back up to 1 year, 12 months. If you need your call history or your call log information for compliance reasons, I would recommend doing so once a month, just so you don't forget. Our engineering team can go back up to 18 months, but that's it. After that, the data has been removed. Now, these little fire hydrant icon here, when you click on that, that actually reports the call. It creates an email with the technical details of the call that goes to our support team. In the body of the email, I do recommend that you type out the context, what you were trying to do, or what kind of call was, what happened on the call, right? Like people, you didn't hear ringing, or the audio stopped, or what have you. All right, feature codes. This allows your VoIP phone users to access different VoIP features directly from their VoIP phones. This information is obviously here in the dashboard. It's also a page on our support pages called feature codes. There's also a one-page PDF called Phone Commands Cheat Sheet, which has all of these as well as a brief description of how to use them. Okay, so that's the dashboard. So we're going to go down here. Next up is Blacklist. This is an included feature. We'll click Edit Lists here. And this allows you to create a list of phone numbers that you are blocking from reaching your system. Right? You say, nope, you're not calling us. So for most of you, you would click Add to create a new list. I'm just going to go over here to an existing list, right? But you give it a name, and then you need to decide, are you blocking anonymous calls or not, right? And that just means caller ID that's coming in, we're not getting a full phone number, or they're blocking it on purpose. If you turn it on, that means they're not reaching us, right? Meaning they're going to get busy tone. Beyond that, you would click on Add Number and enter the phone numbers that you want to block. +, number 1, area code, and phone number. No parentheses, no dashes, no spaces. And you just keep clicking Add for each phone number you want to add. Once you're done, you just click on Save. You go back to Settings. You make sure your list is over here on the right under Selected. You click Update just to make sure everything's updated. So now every number that's on these two lists, and now anonymous numbers, right? They can't reach my system, right? They get busy tone when they dial any of my phone numbers on my account. Call recording. So there's two kinds of call recording on Dash, right? The base call recording that everyone has access to initially. When you click on call recording here from the menu option, it actually opens a new tab and takes you to recordings.virtualpbx.com. You just need to enter in your Dash login information. You'll see your call recordings there. You can play them back. You can download them. You can delete them. Now, this account has AWS integration turned on. So what that means is I can link to an AWS account of my own, and I can have my calls recorded and stored on AWS versus with VirtualPBX. Now, if you make use of AWS call storage, right, for call recordings, you actually need to turn off call recording under the users and set it up directly here. Now, it's not fully set here, so I can't show it to you here. I'll have to make a note to do that at some point. But if you have AWS storage, then when you click on the call recording link, it will show you the files from AWS. So then you can play them back, listen to them, download them, or delete them. And the reason to use AWS storage is, one, you have a high call volume and you're recording all your calls. And then especially in that scenario, it's going to be much cheaper to go with AWS versus our storage. All right. Monitor is a plan-specific feature, right? On some plans, not others. So you might have to upgrade, but this allows you to see the status of your other staff members, right? So if they're on a call, right? If they're on an inbound call, they'll show up as a blue bar, and they'll give you information about the call they're on. Outbound call would be yellow. At least it should be yellow. That's what it's everywhere else. You can also see if they mark themselves away in a queue. For the active inbound calls, they would show up here as well, and each would have its own individual call box. It's going to see who they're going to, what devices in play. For parked calls, if there's any parked calls, it'll give them the parking spot number here too. You also can separate by available, busy, or just everybody. Reports will open up a new tab and take you to reports.virtualpbx.com. This is the advanced reporting feature, which is a plan-specific feature, right? So available on some plans or not others. Fortunately, because of the streaming software, it doesn't show up here. But you can see a demo of the advanced reporting under our YouTube channel. Under videos, you're looking for the advanced reporting demo. But basically, it lets you create your own custom reports that might be, or oftentimes is more useful than the call logs. Voicemail Manager, this is built in for every account. This allows you to get to any individual voicemail box on the account so you can see their voicemails. So here you can see the date, the time, phone numbers involved. This one was already marked for deletion. These two are still active in the voicemail box. Playback, download. You can also, as an admin, you have the option to move it to a different voicemail box, or you can mark it for deletion, etc. Integration AWS, again, this has to be active on the account, but you would just need to have this information from your AWS account to link properly. Acd Cues. Acd stands for Automatic Call Distribution, right? This is a call center feature. There are two kinds of queues that are available, right? This is what we show here are the standard Acd queues. That the other are Acd Cues Pro. Now, these are add-on features on specific plans. So you probably would need to check with our account services team to make sure your plan can add on one or the other, and then or which one is best for you. Unfortunately, accounts can only have one or the other. So I can only show you the standard. However, on the YouTube channel, we have an Acd Cues Pro demo. So you can view that to get an idea of what the Pro queues are like. Create a queue. I'm just going to click on an existing queue here. Right, you just need to give it a name and then a call-in extension or phone number. Right, so a queue can have either a phone number or an extension, but not both. Now, it can still be a menu option from your virtual receptionist, right, or your auto attendant. Queue routing strategy. This is a pull down, which unfortunately doesn't work properly. Round robin will equalize out over time. Most idle means whoever's been waiting the longest for a call gets the next call. Least calls means the least amount of connected calls. And then there's least calls, which is a combination of connected and missed calls. Hold treatment, you can have hold music play. You can upload a file, mp3, .ogg, .wav, etc. The Pro queues, you can have multiple media files play, right? So one after the other. The Pro queues also have the option to announce the wait in line or their position in line. Queue timeout is how much time your inbound callers can wait on hold, measured in seconds. Queue call limit is how many people are allowed to wait on hold. Now, I have it set at 4. That means 4 people can wait on hold. That is on top of people who are already speaking to my staff members. Right? This basically means how many people can wait to have their initial contact. If I change this to 0, that means there's no limit. Timeout immediately if empty. This means if I have no staff members logged into my queue and a caller comes into the queue, the system will treat that caller as if they've already hit that 3,600 seconds. The escalation call flow after timeout is after that 3,600 seconds has hit, what do you want to do with the call? Here's a pull down. You select where you want it to go, right? Groups, users, voicemail box, another queue, back to your virtual receptionist, etc. The zero out time call flow, if you have something selected here, right? So if I change this from none, that means my inbound callers, they can press 0 while they wait on hold. And when they do that, where do I want to send them, right? If I leave it at none, that means they can't press 0. They can't, they can, but nothing happens. All right. Agent behavior. So agent recovery timer, measured in seconds. This is how much time the system will wait before it offers an agent a second call from the queue. Right? So say Dylan, just ended a call. The system in this case will wait 15 seconds before it offers him another call from the queue. Right? So he has time to catch his breath, take a drink, finish his notes, etc. Force away on reject or missed. If this is enabled, that means if your staff member misses a call from the queue, the system marks them away, and then they have to manually turn themselves back to ready. And then agent connect timeout measured in seconds. The default is 20. Again, typically plenty of time for a VoIP phone, which is all they could use on the queues. Now, once you have queues created, if you go over on here under members on the left, this list of people are all people that are available to be in my queues. This is not everyone on my account. But if I click on manage members, now I have the complete list of my staff members, right? The list on my right are people who are on queues. List on my left are people who are not yet in queues. If I want to, I can, let's see here, who do we want? So I can select people and I can remove them. And now they're over here. Right, there's Josh. And there's Michael. Right, or vice versa. Now, once I've assigned people to be in my queues, I have to assign them to their specific queues. Right, so I click on the queue name. And actually here, let's, oh, well, I got people logged in and they might be doing some testing. Anyway, click on agents. So this is where you would assign people to be in this queue or not. So like I can click and drag and I kind of remove Michael, and let's move Mark. Right, so now they're no longer part of my queues, right? So I have 2 less people. But let's say, oh wait, that was wrong. And I can move Aaron back in. Oops. Now, once you have agents assigned, then you can click on managers, and then you can make any of the existing agents a manager, right? So I can move Michael over here if I wanted to. Now, once your staff members are assigned to queues, they can then log into dash.virtualpbx.com and click on Acd Cues, right? That will take them to this page. They start by clicking on begin session. And now I'm in my queue. That first time logging in, especially, or if they've had any changes to their VoIP phones, they want to click on this little phone icon here and make sure they have selected a default queue device. They do not want it on select all. That can cause problems. So specifying the right device, click on the phone icon again, and then I can mark myself as ready. So once I do that, that means I'm ready to take calls, right? So calls can be offered to me. If I go to lunch, right, I would just mark myself away. Or if I had to go to a restroom or had to go to a meeting, right? End of my day, I would click on end session. While you're in the queue, right, you can see your status here. Now, as an admin, I can click on this little icon here to remove people directly from a queue if I need to. Now, the pro queues, they have a performance icon here in between these two, so you can compare agents to each other in terms of like their call volume handled. Pro queues also have the ability for admins and managers to listen in on a call, right? Eavesdrop. They can whisper to the agent to help them, or barge in if it's getting out of control. And that should all be in that demo I mentioned earlier. Dynamic caller ID is a plan-specific feature. This allows you to create rules to change the outbound caller ID from calls from your VoIP phones. Generally, you just click on Create New Rule, but let's edit an existing one here. So you give it a name. right? That's just so for your reference. You choose a phone number on your account from this pull down, and then you choose how to implement it. In this case, I'm saying whenever my staff members dial a 408 area code phone number, to automatically change their outbound caller ID to this one here. Right. Additionally, I have this one here where I'm saying if my staff members enters this feature code, right, *550, to change their outbound caller ID to this 323 phone number. All right, so this one's a little bit more work for your staff members, right? Because the other one, they can just dial area code and it'll change it to the right one. When you create your own feature codes, I do recommend star and then 3 digits. So that way you're not running or making a conflicting one with the system feature codes. Faxes, this goes to your fax manager. It's an included feature, so you can get to any fax box on your account. You can see the status of your inbound faxes here. So the date, the time, phone number that they came from, number of pages, you can download the file. The Outbound Facts tab. Right, you can see the successes, actually. Right, when you see failures, this means that the system had a problem communicating with the other fax machine. Now, sometimes if you click on this last icon here, there might be additional information that could tell you what's going on. Sometimes not really. Right, user busy, right? Number was busy. Right, so that's a, hey, try it again. The email to fax logs, when you see errors here, this is where the system had a problem processing the fax request. Now you can see the email address and the email to, so you can see if there's a problem with the format or if it's coming from the wrong email domain. But you can always click on the little eyeball icon here and you can say, oh, no valid attachment. It could mean they forgot to include an attachment. It could mean they attached something other than a PDF or TIFF file, like an Excel file or a doc file. Number Manager, this takes you to your spare numbers page. Webhooks is a plan-specific feature. This allows you to link Dash to other software, like Zapier, for example. Now, if you want this on your account, you actually need to talk to our sales team. They have more information on it. You can also look at developer.virtualpbx.com. That will have sample code of what we've used to link Dash to other software. There's also a demo on our YouTube channel. It's Introduction to Zapier. So it's specific to Zapier versus webhooks in general. But webhooks is essentially programming, right? So you need to tell the system what kind of information you want to deal with and where you're sending it to. And that other software then gets that data, and that's where you're manipulating it. Right? So you essentially need, like Zapier requires a subscription, right? So do many other services that use it or that make use of APIs. So it's something to be aware of. The user portal, every user has their own individual user portal. One thing to keep in mind about voicemails for the user portal, right? It will only show up here as long as you do not have delete after notification enabled, right? So if I had that enabled on my voicemail box, nothing would show up here for any new voicemails. But as a user, I can see who it came from, what time, I can play it back, I can download it, and then I can choose to mark it for deletion or not. My call history tab, I can view my call history and I can select the date range so I can go further back. Faxes only works if I have my own Faxbox, but then I can see my own fax history. The contact list tab shows all the Dash account information, right? So other users, the other auto attendants, the groups, queues, etc. It's not something your users can add to. The conference tab, over here on the right, this is where your staff members would change their moderator pins and participant pin numbers. They can also have people joined, deafened, or muted, as well as play entry and exit tones. When they're in a conference, they can click the plus sign to invite someone, another Dash user, to their conference. They can lock a conference so no one else can join. They can mute everybody, unmute everybody, or end the conference call, right? Hang up. Also, while in a conference, each participant has their own moderator, has their own little box, right? So you can mute a specific person, right? Or kick them out even. Settings and devices tabs. This is where your users would enable their own call forwarding and then put the +1 area code and phone number and click on save, as well as see the status of their current devices. And that is everything. I haven't seen any questions pop up in the chat, so I'm going to go ahead and end the stream. I thank you for your time today. Again, we'll be back next Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific. And as a reminder, there will be no training on Tuesday, June 28th. Thank you very much, and I hope you have a wonderful day.